That's a historic piece, so I'm going to stop that. What do you think, guys? Could someone put the light on for a minute? Thanks. That's something that a lot of people don't want you to see, but the history, more was out back then, and it's all been kind of rewritten, and it's a mad business here. So anyway, that happened, and oh man, the cat was out of the bag on that. Let me just put the brakes on this. I don't know how to do that. Hold on. You know, here.
Okay,
That's, what did I do? Okay. I think so. No, it's all gone now. I was going to show. I was going to show another YouTube. Are you okay for now?
Yeah.
What you got out of there is, and I think maybe you're a little surprised, is that we're verifying, these are offices verifying film. People wouldn't confirm or deny what I was saying. It's easy to say no. Well, that says yes, doesn't it? There's a lot of things, and people they've never spoken again. That was Captain Mike Verano that drove Gordon Williams on the film. So it's not me saying it, and it's been out there forever. And in fact, CNN went as far as saying where nuclear weapons are. And yet certain people still don't say, and that makes it defense significant, where this stuff should be really pissing you folks off, even though it's a long time ago. You were lied to about the nuclear weapons, and you have these beams coming down that hurt our weapons, by the way. We had containment teams come in, and these weapons, there were a number of weapons rendered useless on that base.
Happened elsewhere as well, isn't it, out of the book?
Yeah, and so that was a factor too, and this is something you should get mad about, but it's been out there in front of you for a long time.
Barry, when you say that, right, yeah, you said rendered useless. Could they have been actually dangerous? Could they, you know?
I don't know. I saw containment teams come. They come in and they clear everything. But there were the Canadians, thanks to them on Declassified, UFO Declassified, through other entities found out that we had 100 tactical nuclear weapons on base at that time, and that I believe 60 of them, 16 or 60, I'm forgetting, that one is too many, were rendered ineffective. And that came through an outside body, through the Canadians, about our base and structure of the nukes and all. I wasn't involved in that end of anything, but this is your country. I mean, this is real stuff. Now, these guys are all highly trained people. I was a trained guy too, and none of them are lying. And they're all a lot of them are still on active duty, but the people you see now on the History Channel all the time, none of them are even around yet. These guys are just telling it like it was. Yes, not everything's there, and they're going easy. And I noticed it's CNN saying alien being. I never said it, but that's what the press would do then. Well, if it's not us, then it's an alien. I don't know. That's putting it too much in a box. Don't know. But I'm not the only one. Obviously, we saw vehicles carrying people or another life form. When Ray Gulius is saying, and here's another thing over here which I'm so tired of. It was a big rumor mill. It was in the pubs. It was this and that. You just saw Ray Gulius say things were clamped down. No one was talking to anybody else, to include me. So that's another myth. There was no rumors at all. Not here, except some civvies seen some things and talked about it, but none of us were. But it's funny that I had my mother's letter I had sent her, which is the only, now the officially first written record of these events. But even when we did this, it was still in a box at my mother's. I just never thought of it. I never thought I'd write a book. Comes to the book. So in 1984, that same year, I met my co-author Peter Robbins. Said, hi, how are you? It was a conference with Alan Hynek. I knew Alan Hynek. Anyone you name, Jacques Vallée, John Keel, I knew real well. He's a miserable old guy, that guy. You better have Zachariah Stitchin. I've done gigs with every, you name him, I know them all. And a lot of them are dead now, man. I've been around a long time with this stuff. And I was one of the upstarts with Stan, will remember this. We were at a conference with Stanton Friedman, and he's like, everyone's with Stan, you know. But Stan, I remember he was hitting on these girls, I think, and these women. And he's like, you know, Stan has the Stan beard going on forever. And I just walked by and I'm like, oh, I know that guy from that UFO movie. And And he goes, have you seen my latest film, to these girls? I'm like, damn. I got to know Stan real well, and over the years, and he's, you know, he does what Stan does. And I've been in a room in a TV show, New Orleans, and we had pizza, and I said, oh, we're going on, me and Peter, to go film a thing. We left Stan with the Dominoes, we came back and the pizzas were all empty, and he just, and he comes out, and he had a heart attack, no wonder he did. And there were 4 empty boxes there, and I'm like, I'm Stan, you bastard, and he's like this. Basically prove it, you know. You know, I don't see evidence of it. Evidence of no empty boxes. So, characters. I could write a whole book on the characters I've met. I re-met Peter Robbins in 1987, my co-author on this book, which we are proud of. This is the updated one. And it is the only one to date still written by a witness. Not the new one. That was written by Nick Pope. I wrote my own stuff, Peter wrote his. And it was 11 years, about 100 grand between us in money. Research, travel, this, that, and the other. If you're pulling a hoax or a scam, you're not going to be dropping your own cash on it. It kind of defeats it, doesn't it? And we never thought we'd get there, and we've had all kind of mountains. When I met Peter, I spoke for MUFON at the national, the big conference at the American University in '97. And I had to do a paper, and I'm really not a do a paper kind of guy. But I had to do it, and I stood there, and I got stopped midway. I got too political. I was young and kind of, you know. And I had Walt Andrus, who was the head of MUFON at that time. He's long gone. I think he's deceased, must be. And he comes up and told me to stop, and I'm like, what? And this is like 700-800 people. I'm like, what are you saying, man? And he says, must stop. It was like Nixon or something. I go, listen. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, I can't talk. I said, I'm being censored by the same people that bitch about government censorship. So I will go outside on the lawn, and if anyone wants to hear what I got to say, come on with me. I emptied the room. So I was enemy number one for MUFON. Never worked for them again.
Just coincidentally, Walt told me that story in Sheffield.
Absolutely true.
You got to pass away.
Yeah, you know, I guess was nice to like me. I don't know what I had cross MUFON policy. You couldn't talk about you couldn't do this back then, guys. I mean, the world's so different now. You just didn't do it, but I did it. And you know, and I know what you were going to get for doing it. So I met this little fella again in the hall, and he goes, hi, I walked back in, and Whitley Strieber was there. The reason I wrote a book is I was misrepresented in a whole bunch of books by '85, about 3 or 4. And Whitley Strieber was sniffing around to write the book Communion. He was known as writing The Wolf and The Howling, all the scary War Day, all those. And so Whitley, I got to know him a little bit. He came to this conference that I did, and he said, you should write your own. And I'm like, okay, and came up with the title and started it. And I had a different guy as a co-author, and he was not a experiencer. He didn't live it. I couldn't relate to a non-living it guy. I can understand, and you're lucky if you have it, but I wanted a second voice that at least was touched by the experience. I met this guy, Peter, and he goes, oh, we met a few years back in Westchester. I didn't remember it at that time. It was basically a hi, how are you? And he looked at me and said, thinking, good luck with this guy. And now we met. And that began 28 years ago we started. And I had him lined up a meet. I knew he was going to be my co-author before he knew it. I didn't even know if he knew how to write. I just knew it. I knew the title of that book, I knew all kind of things, and I knew it would get published. And it took 9.5 years with us two. And if I didn't have that guy, I would never have completed this. So I went to a divorce doing that, my first one, done 2. And we've gone through everything. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, Rendlesham has become whatever it is, more than me, it's not about me. But I'm very proud of the fact that I was the one that kicked the lid off the can. No one else did. I did. I paid the price for doing it, but I knew there would be one because it was a real thing and it involved governments. It's an international incident. It's not a lighthouse. It cost lives. It cost damage with all of our families. It's like a rock in a lake in the rings. It is the great big ugly. That's what I call it. It's nothing nice about these events. It's not fun. I see people, I love that case. It's not a case. There's nothing to love. It's not a case, there's lives. There's a phenomenon, it's at work, but it gets overshadowed by all the dark things the federales, yours included, did to us with impunity. Our base let us get thrown to the sharks. They had outside entities that deal with this. They're civilians. They're not government, CIA. That's why the governments say, we have nothing to do with it. They don't. They farm it out, the slants. Slant operations. Contractors. That's who contains this stuff. Fronts. You're not looking at it when you see it. It ain't them. It's that thing over there with the sign Burger King. But it ain't a Burger King. It's so wrapped up in black project, black money, black drug money. It's the biggest secret in the world. They lose control. They're losing it. The control is so desperate now. The world's so different from them days. So different. So anyway, on the better note, I'll just show you one thing, and I think I can close it with that. But let me, 2 seconds, forgive the PowerPoint, my version of PowerPoint. You're lucky I don't have like slope things to send up for you. This is my next thought. I wrote this book and I can't spell for beans. So there's, like Kurt Vonnegut in person, the author told me, he goes, kid, there's no magic in getting writing books. The magic's getting fucking paid for it. I swear to God, told me that on 8th Avenue. Mr. Vonnegut, can you give me any advice? I should have said, run. National Press, L-E-B-A. I just will finish with this, because it's 35 years, guys. I won't burn you. 1, 2, 001. Here's my dramatic finish, like Liberace. Hold on, Russ. No, you're all right, bud.
I'm standing.
I hear you, bud. As time went on, I was very honored. I've done a lot of things, I've spoken at UN, all kind of things. I know senators. You're looking at the only person, whistleblower, in this subject, this country, my country, anywhere, that has had his United States passport suspended for doing just this. It's never happened to anyone, and I want to thank the UFO community in America when that happened in the 90s. Before our book came out, it was once I started saying we had nukes, because you still won't hear other witnesses say it. I got sick of the bullshit, no defense certificate. I said, well, we had nukes, and I did that right in Sheffield here. Nottingham, sorry. And I lost. My passport got suspended. Eventually it was removed. And it took, do you know what an attorney general is? The attorney general of the United States is the top lawman in the land. We were very lucky within a year. It kept me from coming to England because they had things lined up. It kept me, it took Peter, got us in touch with Ramsey Clark. And Ramsey Clark was Robert Kennedy's number 2 attorney general under John Kennedy of the United States, not a local lawyer. Kennedy's assassinated. He is Lyndon Johnson's number 1 lawyer in the land of America, Ramsey Clark. Nixon comes in 68. Different Republicans, different thing, but Ramsey Clark was so respected, he remained Richard Nixon's Attorney General for his first term. But Ramsey Clark came out against the Vietnam War and all these things. Ramsey Clark got me my passport back. Because the only way you can lose a passport in America is if you're a convicted felon. You don't have a right to one. Right? Class A felon, then you don't know. And this happened to me, and it has never happened to anyone. It happened to me. And the reasons were for speaking about sensitive defense issues in a public forum on foreign soil. This is a fact and real. And if I was in America right now and I saw some old school ufologists, I would thank them for not doing a fucking thing about it, or even backing me or standing with me. Just like that picture I showed you earlier. They all ran like schoolgirls. So, stand alone, baby. And I didn't do too bad doing that, did I? But I've had great friends and support around me also. I am stronger than my enemies, clearly. But I want to show you something and just end on a positive note. Last week, if you follow this stuff, was not a very positive event for certain people where my old Charles Halt came. I want to make a statement about Colonel Halt real quick. He was a nice guy on the base. He was a very open officer. And we have had a dynamic. I got his document out, his name's on it. I caused hell for a lot of people. I didn't know it, but I found out last year how much I stopped people from progressing to general, all kind of things, because I blew the whistle. Didn't intend to do that, but I didn't think of the cause and effect. So some people really, are pissed off still, and I would be too. Who is this little SOB doing this? But, and there's things I don't know about this. I've put my finger into the bee's nest, which certain people I call would know more. At the end of the day, he was a very, I'm going to say this, and I'll be different than maybe what you were there and a few others. When I was there, I met Colonel Holt. He was nice and accessible as an officer. He liked to hang around security forces. He wasn't us. He liked to hang around us. He was like the cops, and he was a very fair guy. And I remember that about him. Then our dynamic, obviously this has changed that. I'm not going to go into anything like that. But I will say I respect his service in Vietnam. I respect the fact that he was very open kind of guy then. I am so sorry because it hurts doesn't hurt Larry, it hurts this, because we're thinking about, look who's doing what the who again in the schoolyard, and we're not thinking of the bigger picture, a breach of your national security in your country by our government and yours, and an adverse effect on nuclear weapons secretly housed in your country, and adversely affected by an unknown phenomenon. And you're told it's a lighthouse. And so that's the tragedy, the interpersonal thing that goes on in Rendlesham. But I guess that's how this is all designed. Let them meet each other. Meanwhile, the people that do pull the strings are laughing. They laugh. They go, it works every time. They know the psychological studies. And we're all getting older now. I mean, he had us all. We're out there now. Now, like Roswell, they're all dead. We're alive, but I'm the youngest end of it at 54. It's got to be one of those dominoes, and God knows what this will look like in 30 years. Who knows? But you should get mad about Rendlesham for every reason. Not because of the way maybe someone says bad things about me or this guy or that, but really about what happened. I think it's pretty clear to you it wasn't a lighthouse at this point, because you've heard British people also were affected by this and seen things. But I just want to show you a thing and get to just shut up and just drink your beer. I used to go to a bar called Sandy's, and that was their t-shirt, just shut up and drink your beer on the back. Anyway, in 2001, I was honored to join 20 military guys, Boeing. They ran bases. A lot of them guys said, we've come forward because of your book, this book. I was honored to get that. They said, you just didn't know how the machine worked. And they go, but that's why you were able to do what you did. You didn't think. Kamikaze, Warren. At the end of the day, I was invited to D.C. I lived here. My son was 6 months old, and it was the honor of my life to stand at the National Press Club. I was the first Rendlesham guy to do so. It was the largest press attendance in the history of the NPC in D.C., even the president speaking at it. And the press didn't come and shoot and leave. They stayed for 4 hours. And the other was on the news at night? Nothing. BBC, we had guys, stringers, in tears. Nothing that night. Huge suppression. I want to end it, I would not have been brought to the joy of my life, my son, without going through these things, without being stationed in England. The life it's a long, I said, boy, how you ended up here. Touring this book in 97, Times bestseller, number 7 in England. Who knew? We're over John Le Carre at that time. Look, rank amateurs like us. Get Liverpool. I want Liverpool. The publicist says, they don't even read there. I'm not kidding. That's what they said. And I said, get us something in Liverpool. So we got some paranormal gig. My ex-wife was taking tickets on the door. I met her. I go, And long story short, without this and without what happened to me, I would not have my son. I think anyone of you know, it means a lot to me. And we lobbied for a week, congressmen and senators in D.C. We had many conferences in Congress, everything. This is we had brief ups. We're at a big long table. The guy, remember Hill Street Blues, the show? Well, Chief Daniels was the host. I forgot who he was then. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was big when I was in the base. This is my up. And we just had a brief up just to introduce ourselves to the press. I would like to end I would never change a thing with what I've done, ever. I would do a few things different, but I still wouldn't, I don't think I did half bad a job. But this was my testimony in May, just before September 11th happened in America. I was living here then. But may I show that to you, would you mind? And it's very brief, and this is, I meant every word, and I would do it again. Russ, could you hit the lights, mate? Or my friend? And I'm quite, and you know, there was no script.
Technology on the base was mentioned in your book.
Yeah.
And he said it wasn't. It was decoyed missiles for Russian satellites.
Well, the decoy missiles came in 1982 after I was left the base. This is something not really my area. I saw Peter Robbins deals with his weather modification things, and that's more his area of interest. Unfortunately, we found a lot of witnesses, and if you read Left of East Gate and read interviews with them, that saw similar things that look like what they call cloudbusters. Could I put my mark on it? I couldn't, but I saw those things. The weapons, the missiles, there were dummy missiles on Woodbridge, not Bentwaters, by the way. I saw what I saw in Bentwaters, and I don't know what they were, but they sure matched, similarly, what Peter showed me was a cloudbuster. I didn't know what the hell any of that was. But then you have, you know, again, our friend has made a stab at something, but is inaccurate already about what he's saying. Is it that? I don't know. A lot of R&D there. Think of that weird storm in '97. What do I know? That's more Peter's area. But what I do know, I did see things that looked like the cloudbuster, right? But more militaristic. Every now and then. Not missiles. I know what a missile is. I was trained killer by the time I got there. I was trained to protect missiles. But we didn't bring the dummies in until after I left, and that was mimicking the cruise missile. We didn't have them in 1980 or 81. So if that helps, but no, again, it's kind of a misdirection. It's an idea, it's a theory Peter has. Me, I'm open. I don't know what the thing was. But we have another series of sergeant that was stationed there that verified, yes, we saw these things, and they would move around the base. Couldn't go any further than that. It's not an area of interest of mine. And I think it was just one more arrow being fired last week. Sadly, not accurate again, but I don't know what it was. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Anything you want? Nothing?
Were those suspected cloudbusters front mounted?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
There were wheels, and it was asking if these things, the long poles, I thought they were a communication thing, right? But they weren't missiles. They were long poles that came off with OD green. And there was, and I first saw it. We went to Princeton University. Peter and I spoke there for the College of Orgonomy, which is an interest of my co-authors, not mine. But I did see there is this weird shit. I met these doctors, big science guys, and I'm like, holy shit! They did show me some weird stuff with that orgonomy stuff. I got enough trouble. But then I looked at the. I was seeing these brochures in the 80s, and I'm looking, and I'm like, my God, we had them on the base. Now that would sound, why add to, who needs any more? But as we proceed, I said, I saw things that looked like that, but they were more military looking. And then we found another, two sergeants, and their interviews and names are in our book. So, but no, they weren't missiles. I don't know what they were. And it's just kind of weird because the weather thing, how that forest is not the forest that these things happened to us in 1980. But I just wish certain critics would have at least some basics and facts to really launch the attacks because they're easily knocked down. But I don't know what it was myself. It's a theory, it's an idea. I think we were so shocked by what happened there in '87. I mean, if you've ever seen a war against trees or a nuclear weapon go off, I know there's the hurricane that came through and all that. I believe there is weather modification at times. Was this it? No. Do we need to add it? I don't know. Some people are interested in it. It's an idea. I couldn't prove it at all. But I did see things that resemble what they call cloudbusters. And they weren't missiles. We didn't have the dummy shit. Thanks, brother. That's a good question, too. Thank God Peter's here, he'd be going through the whole organ. Dr. DeMeo.
You Facebook him.
No, I love the guy, but he that's his bag. It's not mine. And there's all, you know, it's kind of like hippie stuff for me. But the anyone, anything, man.
Bearing in mind it was the height of the Cold War, what do you actually think you saw in the figures? Were they aliens or?
Yeah, no, I 100% convinced it was non-human technology there for 3 days. I think there was an operation in place. It wasn't a random thing to vector this stuff in and study it in close confines. I think we were put in a trap. And to see how this phenomena interacts with military people, being observed by special forces units in those woods, thus the pictures I showed earlier, that have guilty consciences. The thing got out of hand. It was being studied, filmed, and everything I'm describing that I saw was frontline. There was a whole back line that we didn't see, and thus that's the command post over at this campsite. This is a much bigger thing, and many of us were put in place on that base. Now I know, not by random, but because of prehistory. This is a threat, and people with prehistory, by the way, with this phenomena, are a threat to the power base. Who do we answer to? But no, and what I saw there, I have a history with this stuff in my life. I don't know where it's from. I know where it ain't from. Not from Detroit. But this, I did see things. The word alien, it's alien to me. They weren't human. It was non-human thing that went on. And how it was all convoluted with sodium amythol. And you see, we were contained rats, and so you can start to sweep, fireproof everyone. This thing got out of hand. It was to be, these guys on the first night were lured. They were lured out to those woods. No question. And this thing just got bigger. Look at the picture I took midday, 2 days later. This shit's still around. I didn't see it then. I didn't know I'd be in front of it later. And so that's my view. That's my view. I know we're not alone here. I know that. I'm not in the proof business. I'm in the truth business, my truth. But I'm not out to sell you nothing. It's also, the reality of this stuff is subjective. You wake up to some reality you live with, and you go, I know we're not alone. Real quick story, 1975, 40 years ago this month, driving on Niagara Falls. Western New York State, New York Thruway, midday, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, car windows open, my mother's driving, my sister's in the back. She wouldn't have cared if we rammed this thing over or a UFO, or she just doesn't care to know about it. If it doesn't have Gucci on it, she doesn't care. And we're driving, and I was 15, and we're driving, and there's a view. I'll just tell you how weird this fucking world is. New York State, upstate, right, very rural, and we're heading throughway, big highway, right? And here's a tree, a lot of traffic, and here's the tree, just real quick, but big tree line. And as we're driving, probably about 50, I think the speed limits had dropped to 50 then, or 55. This thing breaks out of the trees. It's running. And it's running about 30 miles an hour. It's about 50, 60, or 50 yards off the highway. The highway's level with this field, marsh. Big red barn out that way. And I'm like this, and it's, there's a stick. There's a deer in front of it. The thing's about 9 feet tall. It's a reddish fur all over it. Its shoulders mass would be like here. Its head was no neck. It was a massive, upright thing running. We have no apes in North America. This wasn't an ape. And it ran in a way that it seemed like it wasn't even on the fucking ground. So that's odd. Running. Boom! Takes the back legs right out of this big buck. We got big bucks there. Broke its legs right there. I saw it happen. The deer flew into the stream, and it jumped in, and we're now passing. State police car right in front of us swerving to pull over, and the thing's in the water, and I just look, and it looked this way at the highway, but there's no neck. The movement I did like that, it did with its upper body. It was wrong in every right way. And its face was a human. It was more human than it was a gorilla. And it was about 9 to 10 feet tall. And it was massive. So all I can say there, I looked